They say silence is a form of strength. But in high school, silence is often mistaken for weakness. At precisely 8:12 a.m. on a misty Monday morning, Emily Harris stepped onto the cracked pavement outside Lincoln High School, her breath curling in the cold Ohio air like little ghosts trying to whisper warnings. The red brick building loomed above her, its old windows reflecting a sky still too tired to be blue. It was her first day in yet another new school, her fourth in 3 years. She had long stopped keeping track of how many times she'd been the new girl. Clutching the strap of her backpack, she took a deep breath and walked through the double doors. Inside, the world buzzed. Teenagers shouted across lockers, sneakers squeaked on waxed floors, and someone's ringtone blared a pop song that would be old news by Friday. Emily kept her head down, moving with the flow, trying not to be noticed. She was 16, medium height, slim, with chestnut brown hair pulled into a no-nonsense ponytail. Her clothes were deliberately plain, faded jeans, a gray hoodie, scuffed sneakers. She had learned how to disappear in plain sight. Speak when spoken to. Smile politely. Never stand out. But inside Emily burned something no one could see. For years earlier in Detroit, she'd stepped into a gym for the first time, trembling and bruised from being jumped by 3 older boys behind a convenience store. That gym had changed her life. Under the tough, no-nonsense mentorship of Master Johnson, she trained in mixed martial arts 6 days a week. What had begun as self-defense became obsession, then mastery. She won tournaments. Fought boys twice her size. Learned to strike, to lock, to take down. She became Michigan's reigning junior MMA champion. But none of that mattered now. Not here. Not in Maplewood, Ohio. Her mother, Dr. Sarah Harris, had accepted a position at the local hospital, hoping for a quieter life after a decade in Detroit CR. With the move came a request, a plea, really. "Let's just have a fresh start, Emily," her mother had said gently while packing up the apartment. "You've proven you can take care of yourself. But this time, please, no fights. No attention. Just be a normal kid." Emily had nodded. She understood. But deep down, a part of her, a sharp, coiled part, stayed awake. She survived the morning classes unnoticed. In math, she gave half answers when called upon. In history, she sat in the back and took tidy notes. Nobody asked where she was from. Nobody cared. Then came lunch. The cafeteria was a battlefield of social hierarchies. Athletes at one table. Theater kids at another. Freshmen cowering by the vending machines. Emily took her tray, chicken tenders, mashed potatoes, a cup of fruit, and quietly made her way to a far corner, her usual strategy. Head down, chew slowly, finish fast. She had just opened her milk carton when a shadow fell across the table. "Hey, new girl," a deep voice barked. Emily looked up. The boy standing before her was tall, maybe 6'3", with broad shoulders, close-cropped blonde hair, and a swagger that screamed entitlement. 2 other boys flanked him like loyal dogs, one short and wiry with squinting eyes, the other taller, lanky, and grinning like he'd already decided she was prey. "I'm Brad Thompson," the leader said, sliding into the seat opposite her without invitation. "And this," he gestured vaguely, "is my school." Emily blinked slowly. "Nice to meet you. I'm Emily." "Emily," he repeated, rolling the name on his tongue like it was something foul. "Where you from?" "Detroit." "Detroit?" Kyle, the wiry one, laughed. "So what, you think you're better than us because you're from the big city?" Emily shook her head and took another bite of her chicken. "I don't think that." "But you think we do," Brad said, leaning in. His voice was pleasant on the surface, but underneath it throbbed something darker. A challenge. A warning. "We've got a system here," he said casually. "Newcomers earn their place. Especially big city types who think they're too cool to follow the rules." Emily forced herself to breathe evenly. "Don't rise. Don't engage. I don't want any trouble, she said, standing up slowly. Jake, the tall one, stepped behind her and clamped a hand on her shoulder. Where do you think you're going? He asked. Emily's heart rate didn't spike. Her blood stayed cool. She didn't even glance at his hand. What do you want? She asked, her voice low, flat, controlled. Brad smiled wide. Just a little respect, he said. Say, $5 a day. You know, for protection. Protection from what? From accidents, Kyle said. Spilled drinks. Missing books. You'd be surprised what can happen to someone who doesn't have friends. Emily looked at their faces, Brad's smug confidence, Kyle's amusement, Jake's boredom, and in that moment, she knew exactly what kind of predators they were. I need to think about it, she said quietly. Brad leaned back like a king granting mercy. You've got until tomorrow. Oh, and Emily, he added, his tone turning sharp. Don't even think about snitching. My dad sponsors the football team. Teachers love me. They walked away laughing. Emily sat back down, unmoving, her fists clenched under the table. She could have ended it right there, right then. A single punch to Brad's solar plexus, a wrist lock for Jake, a takedown on Kyle. 30 seconds, maybe less. But she had promised her mother. That evening at home, the scent of lasagna filled the air. Her mother stood at the stove, humming softly, exhausted but smiling. How was your first day? She asked. Emily hesitated. It was fine, she said. Just a normal first day. Her mother raised an eyebrow but said nothing. They ate dinner, talked about the hospital, and pretended nothing was wrong. But that night, Emily lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying the cafeteria scene. Brad's voice. Jake's hand on her shoulder. The laughter. The smugness. She had been underestimated before. In Detroit, it had taken 2 bloody noses and a broken locker door before the bullying stopped. But here? Here she had a choice. Walk away. Or send a message. Her fingers curled into fists beneath the blanket. Tomorrow would be different. By Tuesday morning, the mist had burned off Maplewood, but the tension in Emily's chest hadn't lifted. She stood at her locker, organizing her books with robotic precision. Her hoodie sleeves were pulled low over her hands, her face calm, but her senses were alert, tuned for a storm she knew was coming. Brad and his pack didn't wait long. They intercepted her by the stairwell just after homeroom. Well, have you thought it over? Brad asked with a predator's smirk, arms folded across his chest. I'm not paying you, Emily said, her voice as quiet as a needle, but sharp enough to puncture his arrogance. The smile vanished from Brad's face. What did you say? I said no. For a second, the hallway hushed. Brad stared at her like she'd grown horns. Then he laughed. Cold, hollow, and full of threat. You want to play games? Fine, he said. But don't say I didn't give you a choice. What followed wasn't immediate violence, it was worse. It was slow, creeping sabotage. In first period, Kyle accidentally bumped her hard enough to send her notebook flying to the floor. When she bent to retrieve it, he planted his dirty boot squarely on it and twisted. Oops, he said with mock innocence. Between second and third period, Jake's shoulder smashed into hers near the science wing lockers. It was calculated, just enough force to bruise. She didn't flinch. Watch it, he barked as if she'd been in the way. She said nothing. But each incident was chipping at her control. By lunchtime, they decided to make it a spectacle. Emily was sitting at her usual corner table, nibbling at a turkey sandwich, when Brad strutted over, with a whole football squad in tow. Laughter followed him like a parade. He didn't sit this time. He stood over her, casting a long shadow. Word around here, he announced loudly enough for nearby tables to hear, is that the new girl doesn't want to follow our traditions. Thinks she's too good for our rules. Conversations dropped. Eyes turned. A few phones were subtly raised. Emily looked up. Brad, please. I just want to be left alone. And I want you to understand your place, he snapped, leaning down. Then, in one swift, deliberate move, he picked up her tray and dumped the contents into her lap. Hot soup soaked into her jeans. Broccoli and potatoes slid to the floor. A gasp rippled through the room, followed by laughter, loud and ugly. Oh no, Brad said, faux regret heavy in his voice. What a mess. Phones were definitely filming now. Emily didn't move. She didn't wipe her lap. She didn't cry. She stared at Brad. Her eyes were no longer wide or quiet. They were calm, but ice-cold. You just made a big mistake, she said softly. Brad chuckled, but unease flashed in his eyes. And what are you gonna do, he mocked. Run to the principal? Call your mommy? Emily stood. Soup dripped onto the linoleum. The laughter rose again, but it didn't touch her. She picked up her backpack and walked away. No tears. No trembling. Just silence. In the bathroom, she scrubbed at the stains, but the scent of soup clung to her clothes. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from fury held in check by willpower. She looked at herself in the mirror. Her reflection didn't match what she felt inside. She looked like any girl who had just been humiliated in front of a crowd. But inside, the cage door had just been kicked open. She pulled out her phone and scrolled to a number she hadn't dialed in months. Master Johnson, she said when the line picked up. Her voice cracked a little. It's Emily. Emily? His deep voice was laced with surprise. How's the new school? Not great. Talk to me. She did. In clipped, quiet sentences, she laid it all out. When she finished, there was a pause. You know, he said, your mom was right to ask you to hide your skills. You're dangerous, and not everyone handles that well. I know. But sometimes, he continued, hiding becomes more dangerous than acting. Especially when they don't stop. And they won't stop. Not unless you give them a reason. You think I should fight? Only if you must. But if you do, be smart. No real injuries. No crowd. No evidence. I remember, Emily whispered. And Emily? Yeah? Whatever happens, don't forget this. You have the right to defend yourself. That afternoon, she skipped her usual route home. Instead, she sat in the library, pretending to study while watching the clock. When it ticked past 4 p.m., she stood and walked to the athletic building. Football practice had just ended. Through the window, she saw the boys trickling out. Eventually, Brad emerged, alone. His hair was damp, his gym bag slung over one shoulder. Brad, she called. He stopped and turned, surprised. His smirk returned instantly. Soup girl. Back for round 2? She walked up to him. The parking lot was nearly empty. I want to make you an offer, she said calmly. He raised an eyebrow. Here. Now. One-on-one. If you win, I pay you $10 a day. I'll do whatever you want. If I win, you leave me alone. Forever. And apologize publicly. Brad burst out laughing. You're serious? She nodded. You want to fight me, he scoffed. You know I bench 300 pounds, right? Then you've got nothing to worry about. Something about her tone, flat, confident, unbothered, made Brad's grin falter. But he recovered quickly. No rules, he asked. No rules, she said. Brad dropped his bag and stripped off his hoodie, revealing a sculpted torso built by years of gym sessions. He towered over her. Emily calmly took off her jacket. She looked tiny beside him. Last chance to back out, he offered smugly. Thanks, but no. He lunged. Fast. Powerful. A punch aimed straight at her jaw. But Emily was faster. She slid half a step aside and let the punch sail past her cheek. At the same time, she brought up her right arm and deflected it with textbook precision. Then she struck. Her left hand slammed into his solar plexus, short, tight, and deadly precise. Brad's body folded. The wind left him in a violent exhale. His knees hit the pavement. He gasped, mouth open like a fish on land. What the hell, he croaked. Emily stood over him. First rule of fighting, she said softly. Never underestimate your opponent. He tried to stand, trembling. She let him. When he was finally upright, pale and shaking, she stepped closer. I didn't even use 10%, she said. If I had, you'd be coughing up blood. His face went white. You'll keep your promise, she asked. He nodded. You'll apologize? He nodded again. And Brad, she added, her voice suddenly sharp. If you or your friends touch me, or anyone else at this school ever again, the next time won't be this gentle. She picked up her bag and walked away, leaving him in the fading light. The king had just been dethroned. The next morning, Lincoln High was electric. Rumors had a way of spreading faster than fire in dry grass, but this wasn't just rumor, it was legend. By first period, whispers were bouncing off every locker, every hallway. Brad got taken down. By who? The new girl. No way. Brad Thompson? In one hit. In the parking lot. After football practice. It didn't matter that there were no videos, no official proof. The fact that Brad came to school quiet, bruised, and humbled was all the confirmation anyone needed. During lunch, the cafeteria buzzed like a stadium. Conversations dimmed the moment Emily entered. But this time, nobody jeered. Nobody laughed. Eyes followed her, not with mockery, but curiosity. Maybe even awe. Brad stood up from his usual table, the same one where he'd once ruled like a king, and walked straight to her. He cleared his throat. I want to say something, he said loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. I was wrong. About everything. The cafeteria hushed. Even the lunch lady paused mid-scoop. I bullied someone I shouldn't have. I embarrassed her. And I was a coward, he said, voice firm. Emily, I'm sorry. What I did was unforgivable. But I hope you can forgive me anyway. A gasp rippled across the room. Emily blinked. Slowly nodded. I accept your apology, she said quietly. From that moment, the atmosphere shifted. Not just toward her, but across the whole school. It was like someone had cracked a hole in the sky and let the light through. But that was just the beginning. 2 days later, as Emily packed her books in her locker, a soft voice spoke behind her. Emily? She turned to find Jessica Martin, one of the most popular girls in school. Behind her were 3 others, Lena, May, and Tasha, all regulars at the varsity cheer squad. They looked nervous. Hi, Emily said, cautious. Can we talk? Jessica asked. Emily nodded, unsure where this was going. The girls glanced at each other, then Jessica stepped forward. We heard the things. About you. What happened with Brad? What you did. And, well. We need help, Lena interrupted, her voice cracking. Emily's face softened. What kind of help? Jessica looked around to make sure no one was listening. There are these guys from Westside High. They wait for us at the bus stop. Every day. Say nasty things. Follow us. Yesterday, one of them grabbed my wrist. Emily's jaw clenched. Have you told anyone? We tried, May said. But it's off school grounds. Teachers said they can't do much. And if we tell our parents, they'll just stop us from going out. Emily nodded slowly. She saw it now, the fear behind their eyes. The same fear she used to feel years ago in Detroit. Fear that didn't come from fists, but from the helplessness of being watched, followed, cornered. "Tell me everything," she said. At 3:45 p.m., the girls stood at the bus stop like usual, trying to look casual. But today, Emily was with them. She sat on the bench reading a book, hoodie up, eyes down, but fully alert. The chill in the air did nothing to slow her pulse. Right on schedule, 5 boys swaggered across the street from the West Side District. Tall, loud, overconfident. Their leader, Travis Miller, a senior with a neck tattoo and too much swagger, zeroed in on Jessica like a dog spotting a chew toy. Well, he called. "Our princess is returned." Jessica swallowed hard but held her ground. "Leave us alone, Travis. We're just saying hi." He smirked. "Why are you always so rude?" He reached for her cheek. Emily stood. "Excuse me," she said, her voice calm but unmistakably clear. "You're blocking the bus stop." Travis turned. His eyes scanned her up and down. "And who the hell are you?" "I'm a student here. These girls are my friends." He scoffed. "Great. Another one." "Listen, sweetheart. You should leave," Emily said. "Or what?" Travis took a step closer. "You gonna cry for help?" His friend moved behind her. "Maybe she wants to hang with us. You look like fun." He reached for her shoulder. "Mistake." Emily spun, quick, silent, efficient, and drove her elbow into his solar plexus. The boy doubled over and collapsed with a wheeze. Travis blinked, stunned. "What the?" He didn't finish. Emily stepped in, lightning fast, and drove her fist into his liver. As he folded, she caught his nose with her knee. He hit the sidewalk in a heap. Blood poured from his nostrils. Silence fell. 3 boys remained, frozen. Emily looked at them one by one. "Anyone else?" None of them moved. "Wise choice," she said. They grabbed Travis and staggered off. Jessica and the girls rushed over, eyes wide with disbelief. "That was insane," Jessica gasped. Emily gave a small shrug. "They won't be back." Word spread again, faster this time. The next morning, the entire school knew about what had happened at the bus stop. This time, the tale wasn't just of defense. It was of justice. Of someone standing up when no one else could. And something unexpected happened. People started approaching Emily, not with fear, but with questions. "Can you show me how to do that? What do I do if someone grabs my arm? Can I learn to fight, too?" Even teachers began to take notice. One afternoon, Coach Harris from the wrestling team stopped her in the hallway. "You've caused quite the stir," he said, half amused. "Sorry," Emily said quickly. He shook his head. "No. I mean it. I think we could use someone like you. Ever considered teaching?" Emily blinked. "I could give you space in the gym, after hours. You lead a small class. Self-defense basics. We've got mats. Gloves. You'd have full control." She hesitated. Then nodded. "I'd like that." That Friday, Emily held her first session in the gym. She expected 5 people. Maybe 10. 26 showed up. Mostly girls. A few boys. Some shy. Some trying to act tough. All looking for something she recognized, a way to take back power. She didn't start with punches. She started with posture. Breathing. Awareness. Control. The first fight, she told them, is not with your fists. It's with your fear. They listened. They learned. They kept coming back. Within weeks, the class doubled. And with it, Lincoln High began to change. Bullies started backing off. Not because of fear, but because of pressure. Nobody wanted to be the next Travis. Even Brad and his former cronies started walking the halls with less arrogance, more humility. Brad, surprisingly, returned to the gym. He never said much. But he watched. Practiced. Helped clean the mats. One evening, after class, he approached Emily. "You know," he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck, "I was the worst kind of idiot." Emily gave him a sidelong glance. "I don't want to be that guy anymore." She said nothing, but a small nod was all the answer he needed. That night, as she sat in her room, Emily looked out the window. A month ago, she'd wanted nothing more than to disappear. To be invisible. To avoid trouble. Now, she was the leader of something bigger than she had ever imagined. Not because she fought, but because she stood up. Because she gave others the courage to do the same. And this felt more powerful than any trophy she'd ever won. It began with a phone call. Emily had just finished her after-school self-defense class. The gym echoed with fading laughter and the soft thuds of gloves hitting mats as students packed up and left. She was wiping down equipment when her phone buzzed in her hoodie pocket. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Emily Harris?" "Yes. This is Officer Barnes with the Maplewood Police Department. I'm calling to inform you that Travis Miller has been arrested." Emily's heart skipped. "For what?" "Assault. A girl from North Ridge High. She's in the hospital." Emily's stomach turned. She had warned him. Had given him a way out. But some people didn't learn. "Why are you calling me?" she asked, cautiously. "There's more," the officer said grimly. "Travis's family is pushing back. Hard. His father has hired a legal team. They're filing a counterclaim against you." Emily froze. "What?" "They're saying your actions last month, at the bus stop, provoked his behavior. They're building a narrative that you humiliated him publicly, that it sent him into a psychological spiral. That's insane." "I know. But their lawyers are spinning it. You may be called into court." By the next morning, the school was buzzing again, but not with admiration. It was confusion. Whispers. Sides forming. "Did you hear? Emily might be going to trial. They're saying she attacked him. She's a hero. This is crazy." But others weren't so sure. "She broke his nose, right? I mean, she did beat up 5 guys." Even teachers seemed uncertain. Some offered sympathetic glances. Others avoided her entirely. Emily walked the hallways with a straight back, but inside, doubt gnawed at her ribs like rust. That night, her mother sat at the dinner table, silent, stirring her tea. "We can leave, you know," Sarah finally said. "Start over again." "No," Emily replied. "If I leave now, I'll always be running. I didn't do anything wrong. And I won't act like I did." Her mother looked at her for a long moment. Then nodded. "Then we fight smart." 2 months later, the trial began. The courtroom was packed. Students from Lincoln High filled the benches. Jessica, Lena, May, Tasha, all in the front row. Teachers, parents, community members. Local reporters crowded the back. Across the aisle sat Travis, clean-shaven, wearing a sweater vest instead of his usual tracksuit. His father, Mr. Miller, looked furious in an expensive navy blue suit. Their lawyers were polished, practiced, and cold. They began with a narrative carefully crafted over weeks of spin. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," the defense lawyer said, "this case is about a young boy, a teenager, who was publicly humiliated, beaten, and emotionally devastated by a classmate. That trauma led to a series of poor decisions." Emily sat still, her face unreadable. He was lured into a confrontation by someone far more skilled in combat, the lawyer continued. And while we don't deny the subsequent incident at North Ridge was tragic, we ask the court to recognize the root cause, Emily Harris's excessive and violent behavior. Objection after objection rose from her side, but the seed had been planted. Then came the testimonies. Jessica Martin was the first. She sat nervously in the witness chair but straightened when asked what happened that day. Travis and his friends had been harassing us for weeks, she said clearly. They waited for us every day at the bus stop. They said disgusting things. One time he tried to grab me. Emily stepped in when no one else did. And did Emily provoke them? No. They provoked her. She told them to leave us alone. They ignored her. One of them tried to grab her, and she defended herself. The courtroom buzzed. Other girls gave similar testimony. Even 2 local shop owners came forward, having witnessed the confrontation from their storefront. Still, the defense fought tooth and nail. She's dangerous, the lawyer said during cross-examination. She didn't just defend herself, she enjoyed it. You girls idolize her. You would say anything to protect her, wouldn't you? No, Lena said, voice trembling but clear. We just tell the truth. Then it was Emily's turn. She stood. Walked to the witness stand. Sat down. Miss Harris, her lawyer said, could you tell us about your martial arts background? I started training when I was 12, Emily replied. After being attacked in Detroit. I trained every day for 4 years. I became the junior state champion. But fighting taught me more than just how to punch. It taught me control. Discipline. And that day at the bus stop? I didn't go there looking for a fight. I went to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. And how much force did you use? The minimum required. I could have hurt them a lot worse. But I didn't. I never do. Then came the cross-examination. The defense lawyer stood slowly, walking toward her like a lion circling prey. You admit you struck my client? I did. You injured him. I incapacitated him. Couldn't you have just walked away? I could have, Emily replied. But what about the girls behind me? Should they have run too? Every day? Until what, one of them ended up in a hospital bed? Her voice rose, not in anger, but clarity. If stopping someone from hurting others makes me guilty, then maybe this court needs to ask what kind of world it wants. Silence. Even the jury looked shaken. 20 minutes. That's all it took for the jury to return. The judge cleared his throat. On the charge of aggravated assault, not guilty. On the charge of provocation, not guilty. Emily didn't move. Didn't flinch. Only when her mother gripped her hand did the tears finally come. Behind her, students burst into applause. Even some of the teachers stood. Justice had spoken. The next morning, the world outside had changed again. Newspapers called her the quiet warrior. A local TV station ran a special on youth empowerment, featuring her story. But Emily cared little for headlines. What mattered was what happened next. The school asked her to continue her classes, officially. They gave her space. Equipment. Even staff support. Attendance doubled again. Students came not just to punch, but to learn how to speak up. How to recognize danger. How to protect others without losing themselves. She didn't just teach defense. She taught confidence. Compassion. Courage. One evening, as she cleaned the gym floor, Brad lingered behind. Why'd you do it? He asked. Do what? Take all this on. You could have kept quiet. Moved on. No one would have blamed you. Emily wiped her brow with a towel and looked at him. Because no one else would. And because someone has to. He nodded, quietly. You know, he said. I used to think strength was about winning fights. About power. Now I think it's about what you're willing to stand for. Emily smiled faintly. That's what I've been trying to say. The courtroom victory didn't mark the end of Emily Harris's story. It was the beginning of something far more profound. Within a month of the verdict, Lincoln High officially incorporated her self-defense program into its physical education curriculum. They gave her a key to the gym, a small office beside the wrestling room, and complete autonomy to design the class structure. What started with 20 students swelled to 50, then 70. Girls came first, shy, cautious, some still nursing emotional wounds. Then boys followed. Not the bullies, but the quiet ones. The ones who had always kept their heads down. Emily taught them not to fight, but to stand. Not to win, but to survive. Not to hurt, but to protect. And it was working. The hallways changed. Students spoke up when they saw harassment. Former cliques dissolved, replaced by small groups bound not by popularity, but by purpose. The culture of intimidation faded. Even Brad Thompson, once the school's apex predator, became something no one expected: helpful, protective, humble. People change, Emily once told a reporter. If you give them the chance, and if they're willing to do the work. She received an award from the mayor, the Maplewood Youth Medal for Courage and Community Leadership. She stood on a small town hall stage in a plain black dress, hands trembling slightly as she accepted it. But her speech was strong. I accept this on behalf of everyone who's ever felt afraid to speak. Who's been told to shrink, to hide, to survive instead of live. This isn't about being fearless. It's about choosing to act in spite of fear. Each of us can be strong. And that strength, when shared, becomes change. That clip was replayed for weeks on local news. And not long after, it was posted online, where it went viral. Emails poured in. From across the country. From teens who had been bullied. From parents who didn't know how to help. From teachers in small towns, asking if she could send her curriculum. And from one girl in particular. Dear Emily. My name is Maria. I'm 14. I live in Texas. I used to cry in the bathroom every day after school because of the way people teased me for being overweight. I read about you. I started karate 2 weeks ago. It's hard. I still cry sometimes. But today I looked one of them in the eye and said, "Leave me alone." He did. I just wanted to say, thank you. You made me believe I could be strong too. Your fan, Maria. Emily read the letter 3 times. Then pinned it to her wall. The final year at Lincoln passed like wind through autumn trees, swift, quiet, beautiful. Her self-defense program expanded to neighboring schools. On weekends, she ran workshops for parents and teachers. She began mentoring others, training seniors to carry on the program after she graduated. And she built something no one expected, an honor court. A student-led panel that addressed peer conflict through dialogue and restitution instead of punishment. The goal isn't to humiliate the bully, Emily explained during its launch. It's to help them understand why what they did was wrong, and to give them a chance to do better. It worked. Suspensions dropped. Repeat offenses nearly vanished. And respect, for self and others, flourished. Then came graduation. Cap and gown. Diploma in hand. Emily stepped onto the stage as class valedictorian. She cleared her throat. For years ago, I came here hoping to disappear. I wore gray, walked quietly, said little. Because I thought invisibility would protect me. But I learned that silence doesn't shield you. It only buries you. She paused, scanning the audience. Friends. Teachers. Her mom, tears brimming. But I also learned that strength isn't loud. It's quiet. It's standing up when everything tells you to sit down. It's helping someone even when you're scared. It's doing the right thing, especially when it's hard. The auditorium stood as one when she finished. The applause was deafening. But Emily's smile was quiet, content. She had already won what mattered most. That summer, she left for Chicago. She enrolled in a university to study psychology, with a concentration in youth behavioral development and sports therapy. She also joined the university's martial arts team, and became its youngest assistant coach in history. But even far from home, she kept getting letters. From kids, parents, teachers. Stories of transformation. Stories of fear becoming fire. Stories of standing up. Each one reminded her that her mission hadn't ended, it had simply expanded. At 26, Emily opened her own center, the Rising Foundation. It started with 1 building, 2 instructors, and 10 students. Within 5 years, it grew into a regional network, offering programs in self-defense, peer counseling, leadership development, and trauma recovery. Emily traveled, lectured, trained school staff, mentored teens who had lost faith in themselves. And always, she began with the same words. Strength is not about fists. It's about choice. On the 10th anniversary of her graduation, she returned to Lincoln High. In the gym, above the mats where it all began, hung a large photograph. A girl with chestnut hair. Determined eyes. Emily Harris's class of 2013. She taught us that real strength is the courage to protect others. Students stopped to look at it on their way to practice. Some took selfies with it. Others touched it like a talisman before training. But every one of them knew her story. And every one of them believed, because of her, that they too could be strong.